harness is probably the only piece of equipment that we use on our dog that has got a negative impact on it before we attach the lead, before the human gets involved. This is classed as a restrictive harness because potentially it restricts the movement of the front legs when it sits on the dog like that. The thing to bear in mind when we're looking at harnesses is this part of the dog, the shoulder girdle, if you like, is very different to humans, which is why we can't just put a strap around here as a way of explaining why harnesses aren't very good for dogs. We've got a collarbone, which a dog hasn't got, or if it has got one, it's just a tiny little stump there. It doesn't really do anything. When you look at our anatomy, our rib cage is like this, and the collarbone keeps everything back in place. But because the dog hasn't got one, and the dog's rib cage is more that shape, when it moves, when it runs, the shoulder slides around the rib cage like that. As it extends its front legs, the shoulder moves around the rib cage. So it's gliding forwards like this. It's actually moving that way as the dog runs. Now, if you've got a harness here, the strap's going across the front legs, it's going to potentially impact the movement of the front legs. If you've got a Y-shaped harness, which is generally called a non-restrictive harness, that sits down the front of the shoulder blade here, when the dog extends its shoulder and the shoulder blade glides around the rib cage like that, if it's fitted correctly, the non-restrictive harness will at some point hit that moving shoulder blade, and that will cause an impact on the gait. That will limit the movement of the shoulder girdle, of the shoulder blade on the rib cage. There was a 2018 study by Lafuente, I hope I've pronounced that right, who found that the Y-shaped non-restrictive harness actually had a greater impact on the dog's gait than the restrictive harness because of this movement that takes place on the shoulder as the dog extends. For me, one of the biggest problems with a harness is the fact that people are buying them off the shelf. They're not particularly well fitted, and as the dog grows, the puppy grows, or the dog changes shape because of maturity or because it's put weight on or lost weight,